This year's heated presidential election has families around the dinner table and maybe a few kids in the morning carpool talking politics. When the questions come up, and they do, plenty of moms find themselves wondering what to say to kids about politics and this particularly negative presidential election. Family researcher Heather Johnson is joining me. It's not the civic lesson parents thought they would be having, but here it is. And you know what's interesting? I've been hosting the show for 11 years. You and I have been having these parenting conversations for
Probably
8 of those
7.
years.
Yeah.
And I was looking forward to this because I thought it's a topic we've never done before. And then the sad truth hit. It's a topic we've never had to do before, yet here we are. What are you hearing on the parenting front when it comes to kids and politics?
It's very confusing right now. As parents, we're trying to do the best we can to talk to them, but we're very conflicted because it's not so much about politics. We're talking about character and lack of character. And that gets really hard, right? To explain how people with no character could possibly be running our country. It gets confusing, right? Yeah. And it gets really hard. So to navigate this, and this is going to feel a little foreign, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop worrying about who we're voting for. And I know even hearing that feels like, but wait a second, that's my core, I know. But we need to stop worrying about that when we talk to our kids. We need to start sharing with them concepts instead of our opinion.
No, what do you mean by that?
So we're going to stick with the concepts behind what politics are, what the election is, what happens in our country, instead of our opinion. There'll be plenty of time to share that, but we're not going to do it yet. So this is, for example, do your children understand the Constitution? Do they know what the Constitution stands for and what it says and why it's important? Do our children understand why our voting and political process is so different from other countries? Can your children tell you who the president and vice president are? Do they know their local leaders? Start with the general concepts of what is happening and what's important.
When you say shy away from your opinion, I want to clarify, you're not saying shy away from your opinion on important topics, maybe shy away from your opinion on the candidate?
It's exactly right. So who you're voting for, put it on a shelf just for a little bit, right? Just for a minute, and have conversations first and foremost with your children that help them understand why the process is great, why voting, why all of this matters. Establish that first, because remember, who they vote for in a couple years when they're 18, and it won't be the same people we're voting for. The issue, it's going to be different. So if we focus so much on our candidates and that's all they're learning, then we haven't empowered them with what they need to make their own decisions in the future.
One repeating theme I've heard among girlfriends of mine is that my 6-year-old knows she shouldn't talk like that.
That's exactly
or
right.
that he shouldn't say those things, and yet we turn on the television and they're seeing adults play that out in front of our eyes. So what can you say to your kids, or how can you teach them around the behavior that they're seeing?
Right, so we teach them that freedom of speech does not trump courtesy. No pun intended at all. Freedom of speech does not.
Good words, Heather.
I know,
good
freedom
words.
of speech does not trump courtesy. It does not. The fact of the matter is, we can't walk around saying everything we think to anyone we want. And we've got to teach them those things. A really good way to do this is we want to teach them 3 key things. We need to teach our children to disagree with respect. We need to teach them to be wrong with integrity. And we need to teach them to be right with humility.
So are we role-playing then in those situations?
We can. It's the way we live our lives, right? It's having conversations with them that helps them explain, look, you might want to tell your sister you hate her, or you think she's a big, stupid jerk. That doesn't mean you can say those things. We have to understand there's a respect and a courtesy issue that comes with anything, whether it's in politics on our televisions at night, or whether it's in our own families. They'll have this again, right? This one is so powerful because they will disagree with someone the rest of their life.
Yeah.
They will be wrong. They're going to be wrong with their spouse, in the workplace, at school. They're going to be right, and they need to have humility. And so we've got to teach them those concepts.
They need to know how to handle it. Is there a certain age, Heather, where you just gloss over it and dismiss it, and then a certain age where you kind of dig in and have these more in-depth conversations? What's the age range we're going for here?
And without even putting an age on it, like a number, you're going to look at your kids and decide what they can handle, right? So, for example, our 5-year-old, when all of this started, came to me and she said, Mom, what does a president do? Like, I hear this word all the time.
She asked that of you.
Yeah, she said, and she heard it all the time. What does a president do? Well, if I tell her global warming, you know, if I go through, she's glossed right over. She's not paying attention. And so I explained to her that a president is kind of like parents for our country. They try to help us make good decisions for our country. Now, here's what's interesting. That she can understand. She can go, oh, well, my mom and dad are parents. They help me make. So we're structuring a conversation that they can grasp onto, that they can understand, and that's what's really important about this. Every child can grasp onto something. Find a way to make it relatable so they understand it. Now, then the question is, wait a second, if I don't like our president now and I don't think they're making good choices, what do I do? But remember, when we started today, we put our opinions on the shelf away. We're building a foundation. It's not so much if this president is doing that, it's that a president should do those things.
In the role, in the
role, in that office. So we're trying to help them understand what is good and right about this system.
I like this line. You say, teach neutral tones and clean mouths. Again, that's at their level. They can comprehend and absorb that.
They know what that means. Now, this is when it's time to share our opinion. When it's time to tell our children who we are voting for or who we do support, we need to stay neutral in our tones. This is not when we throw all of that we've talked about out the window and get upset and rant and rave, and it isn't. We need to stay neutral in our tones, in our delivery. Clean mouths refers to our need to talk more about what we're for and what we support instead of bad-mouthing what we don't like. Remember, we just got through talking about disagreeing with respect, being wrong with integrity, having humility. And so focus on why you support someone, focus on why you're voting for them, focus on what you do support instead of constantly bad-mouthing. Otherwise, remember, they very quickly tie our bad-mouthing to what they're seeing on television. And now there's not a lot of difference in a small child's mind.
If the end goal is to raise a child who's responsible, smart, is a critical thinker, this is the prime opportunity to lay that foundation.
Absolutely, to teach them to think for themselves. If anything, take this election process right now, these next couple weeks, put them all in a nice little package and start teaching your children how to think for themselves, because we want them to be able to look at issues and make a decision. We want them to know right from wrong. We want them to know how they're going to vote and why, but we've got to empower them with that, right, to do it themselves. Remember, kids who can't think for themselves, they struggle with boredom. They struggle with self-esteem issues because they don't feel like they have control over their own lives. They struggle with making decisions and sticking to them. So this is much bigger than who wins. It is much bigger than that. Let it be a foundation, a jumping point for our families to teach skills and principles they need the rest of their lives.
One of the big underlying tragedies, I think, in this tone and this election season has been the questions come forward, should I even vote?
Right.
If I don't want to vote for, X individual, I don't want to vote for Y individual, should I even vote? And you say that's a point parents should jump on, particularly with teens and those young adults.
Right, and that opportunity to vote, freedom, really, it empowers us. We need to encourage participation. We've talked before, you and I have, about the research that shows us that what parents don't talk about, or if parents are not talking about something, it automatically sends the message to our children that that thing doesn't matter. So if we're not speaking about it with them, they assume it doesn't matter.
It's not important.
So we need to not just vote, we need to be engaged, we need to be involved, we need to be having these discussions, just like those comments from viewers who are doing it with their children. We need to vote. Our kids are the first on voting day. If I don't already have a sticker by the time I pick them up from school, they're the first to look at me and say, well, where's your sticker? You haven't voted? You haven't? Because we need to teach them it's important. Otherwise, when it's their turn, they won't be involved. And that's the beauty of where we live. It's the beauty of our opportunities
here.
This
is a beautiful conversation. I'm grateful we were able to have it. On the same side, I think it's sad we need it so desperately right now, but thank you for bringing those parenting strategies to the forefront for us. We appreciate it.